Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Clash of Champions 2019 review. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I sat through this entire 3-hour event. I'm definitely going to provide you guys with week-to-week reviews on Raw, SmackDown, NXT, and AEW once AEW comes available on October 2nd. To give you guys an overall outlook on the show, I'm not going to really go deep into the matches. I'm going to try things a little bit different here on these reviews, at least for this pay-per-view alone. This show really was a decent, fun, entertaining show. It was bearable to deal with. The pace of the show went very well. And they just went from one match to the next, explaining each and every matchup to why they were there and so forth. A lot of it did not make sense, such as example, Raw guys facing SmackDown tag team champions, SmackDown challengers facing Raw challengers Raw champions for the tag team titles with Braun Strowman and Seth Rollins, and so forth. Two matches out of everything with storyline build that was done decently was Becky Lynch and Sasha Banks for the Raw Women's title and the WWE Championship with Randy Orton and Kofi Kingston. Charlotte and Bayley, they were okay, I guess, the way they did it. I do like the idea of bringing Sasha Banks and Bayley into this heel type role that they're on. They're not really turning on each other. Sasha Banks never wanted to, diss her best friend or not be loyal to her. They were friends no matter what, and now they are actually friends as heels. So I really think that is really cool aspect of what they've thrown in, though it did leave a little bit of controversy of logic involved in this whole situation. I think maybe they could have kept them separated from each other at the moment until they got done with Charlotte. But other than that, I think everything else on this show was you take it for what it is type of thing. It wasn't exactly a prestigious show. It didn't elevate anything heavily outside of a few things here and there. The ending of the show was magnificent. I actually was very pleased with what they did to introduce a new challenger. Yes, of course, Seth Rollins retained his Universal Championship in a very lackluster matchup. The match was decent, but the way they made it, it looked like Roman Reigns 2.0 type shit. I really did not like the way they did things. I think they could have ended things a little bit earlier than what they did with this Universal Championship match, which I'll get into with you guys. Overall, the show was bearable. It was fun to watch. It had its moments. It had its times where you could just take it or leave it and not watch it for those specific matches that you wouldn't care to watch at that time when they were on the card. But overall, this show was fun to watch from beginning to end. Now, would I go back and watch this? Maybe, depending on how much you love WWE and professional wrestling. If you're a casual fan, probably you wouldn't. But if you're a hardcore WWE fan, you would. Just based on the superstars that were in the show overall. But I mean, honestly, there's a lot of things you could skip if you were to rewatch the show, which would make the show a lot shorter for you to watch, which would be very nice for you if you were interested in doing that. But me personally, I'm not going to go back and watch this right away. I would probably see this maybe later on in like a year or so, maybe just for the hell of it. But that's not here or there. So let's go into one aspect I'd like to say. The best match of the night. I'm going to say that is Becky Lynch and Sasha Banks. The reason why I say that is, and And the reason why I say that mostly is because of the fact that they left a cliffhanger to this whole entire storyline. This matchup is definitely leading into Hell in a Cell on October 6th, which was advertised on the pay-per-view if you actually watched it. So this matchup definitely is going to play out in a Hell in a Cell matchup. Most definitely, I would even put it into the realm of main event type stature. Now, granted, at the end of the show, Seth Rollins wins and retains his Universal Championship. We get The Fiend to show up at the end of the show. He hits his Sister Abigail maneuver and then does a mandible claw and inserts it into Seth Rollins' mouth, putting him unconscious basically at the end of the show. And that is definitely a cliffhanger that everyone probably is going to be interested in seeing. Hopefully will be the person to take the title off of Seth Rollins at this point, because Seth Rollins is played out. I feel personally, just based off of watching his main event match, he is played out to the max. So that was a surprise of the night. Not to mention also Luke Harper being a surprise guest onto this show with helping out Erick Rowan to pick up a victory over Roman Reigns, which I was actually shocked of, which is very nice. They did something different. They made Roman Reigns not Superman. They made him just a normal guy, which people can appreciate and get behind. Now they can appreciate Roman Reigns for that loss, and when he does get the victory over Erick Rowan, they will actually appreciate him more. I figure by WrestleMania, I think the fans overall, majority, will be okay with Roman Reigns becoming a WWE champion. So that's just to wait and see type of situation with that. So I'll go ahead and I'll now go into the entire match card. One thing I'd like to mention, I don't normally review the pre-show, but there was one match that I was interested in, and it wasn't on the main card. It was on the pre-show. So that was AJ Styles and Cedric Alexander, which I was very surprised that was placed on the kickoff show. This match didn't even get but 8 to 10 minutes. It was a solid overall matchup. The match was mostly Cedric Alexander picking up momentum in the beginning, and then eventually AJ Styles pretty much doing the rest of the work, closing out the match, hitting the phenomenal forearm, and then the Styles Clash for the 1-2-3 at the end of the match. So that's pretty much what happened there, and then the rest of the club came down and beat the shit out of Cedric Alexander. Pretty much, shades of Ricochet at the end of the day. So I'm not quite understanding this. Is this like some kind of fucking let's beat up all the black guys type of situation, or is this just coincidental? I don't know. But, not to sound racist there, but that was just downright ridiculous, them beating the shit out of Cedric Alexander after they've already beaten the hell out of Ricochet. So every time AJ Styles picks up a victory, they're going to beat the shit out of the next opponent that AJ faces at the end of the match. I think that's kind of retarded in my opinion, but whatever. But the match was good. I think it would have been better if it was kicking off the show, but instead we had Seth Rollins and Braun Strowman kick off the show with the tag team titles on the line against Bobby Roode and Dolph Ziggler. This matchup was, I'd say, alright. It wasn't exactly a complete, oh my god, I'm really going to get excited just to kick off this show with this match, and I was hyped up for it. No, it was an absolute travesty that they make Seth Rollins lose the tag team titles, but then we're supposed to go into this matchup in the main event with him looking like as if he's supposed to walk away the winner after losing the tag team titles. That just to me seems totally idiotic and fucking stupid. And then on top of it, you make them lose the tag titles to two guys that aren't officially a tag team. They just were thrown together to have a tag team matchup and win tag team gold. I don't get that whatsoever. That was absolutely ridiculous. Totally against the whole entire idea, what they did. I think it should have been the OC, which is the club with Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows. That should have been the matchup for the tag team titles overall. This matchup, I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5 stars just to be generous, but this matchup really didn't do anything for me. It was a pretty solid, okay matchup, but nothing really stuck out at me very much. AJ Styles and Cedric Alexander, I'm going to give it 3.5 out of 5 stars, simply because it did get me, pumped up for this event, and it did its job in what both of these guys can do in the ring. So then we move on to the SmackDown Women's Championship match. SmackDown Women's Championship match with Bayley and Charlotte Flair. I was a bit surprised by this. A lot of people were convinced that Charlotte Flair was going to walk away the women's champion for the 10th time. I don't think so. I didn't think that would have been the right thing to do, and I was very happy that they went with this idea of having Bayley win. But under cheap circumstances, may I add, did she win. She managed to grab the bottom turnbuckle and then trip Charlotte Flair's face into it, giving her a bloody nose, I believe, and then getting the 1-2-3, basically stunning her temporarily for the 3 count. And that's pretty much that match overall. This match was a pretty good matchup. I don't think it was super great, though. It was okay for where it was placed on the card, so I'm not going to complain too much on it. I think it's a 3.5 out of 5 stars. So I'm not going to be too upset with what happened in this matchup. The next matchup after that was the SmackDown Tag Team titles. This was with Revival challenging the New Day for their SmackDown Tag Team titles. And this actually was built up over Xavier Woods' knee, being busted. Not really busted, but more injured, and he couldn't move around on it as well as he normally can. This matchup was centered on that kind of situation, which I think played out very well in making a reason why they could win the tag team titles. They pretty much put Big E out of commission at the end of this match, hitting the machine fallout, I think it is, or some kind of shit. They hit their tag team finisher on Big E and then on to Xavier Woods in the middle of the ring, getting the 1-2-3 and picking up the victory after a submission. Actually, no, they even they put a submission hold, a reverse ankle lock on Xavier Woods, forcing him to tap out and getting that victory over the New Day. Now, granted, they pick up the victory, but does this really do anything for the Revival? What does this mean when they do the draft on August 11th? Are they just going to put the Revival on SmackDown since they're carrying around the SmackDown Tag Team titles? I mean, they got everything mixed up. It's just a complete mess. There's really nothing clear on who's on what brand. It just seems like one big giant clash of everybody being able to cross over on each other's shows of insanity, which I have no problem with chaos, but make sense of it, This really doesn't make any sense why these two are even tying up with each other when one tag team, the Revival's on Raw, while fucking the New Day's on SmackDown. But then again, we got Randy Orton as a SmackDown competitor linked up with the Revival, who is on Raw as a faction. So I don't know how all this really plays out, but quite frankly, it is a complete mess of what it is, and I just find it completely idiotic. But then again, WWE is not exactly what you would call a fucking intelligent company right now because it's being run by a senile old fuck. Anyway, let's move on here. This matchup, I give it a 4 out of 5 stars just simply because it was good tag team action. And despite the fact that, the Revival's on Raw, they're a legit tag team. For them to win the tag team titles, unlike Bobby Roode and Dolph Ziggler, it makes sense. And it gives it good value to the SmackDown tag team titles. It seems like the SmackDown tag team titles have more value of tag team wrestling than Raw's tag team titles do. Because Raw tag team titles seem to change every fucking month or every couple of weeks. It's ridiculous. It's like a revolving door with the next person in line to take the title, and there's no legit champions carrying those belts to hold on to them for a decent amount of time. 3-4 months, something like that. Anything would do. But it doesn't seem like anybody is holding on to those belts, and every person they put the belts onto don't seem to do anything to help that tag team title on Raw evolve into something better than what it is. So that's just the way it is, I guess. We then had the women's tag team titles match. This match was a mandatory bathroom break. There was nothing to this match whatsoever. I do like Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross, though, as tag team champions. They do bring some legitimacy to the tag team division, but they have no tag teams to go up against that will elevate that fucking championship. The only tag team I can see that would be anything of a threat to them and legit would be Sasha Banks and Bayley. But right now, they're independent wrestlers trying to win the major title that's on each brand. Bayley already has accomplished that. She's just trying to maintain the belt, while Sasha Banks is still trying to chase after that fucking Raw title and maybe even have a legitimate title run. Have at least one title defense. That would always help. Jesus Christ. That poor girl is never given an opportunity to defend one championship she has ever had in her entire career. So that's pretty sad in itself. So let's move on from that. Nikki Cross and Alexa Bliss beat Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville in a very lackluster matchup. I really did not care for this match until the ending. And Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross pick up the victory. Nikki Cross picks up the victory for her team and gets the win. So I'm very happy with that ending at least. But the rest of the match, you could take it or leave it, throw it out the fucking window. I don't care. This match sucked. From there, we had, I believe it was, we had Miz challenging for the Intercontinental Championship against Shinsuke Nakamura. This matchup, I would give it 3.5 out of 5 stars. This matchup had a very good heel-like atmosphere to it, meaning Sami Zayn creating distractions, causing The Miz to be distracted by Sami Zayn, and then eventually The Miz getting cracked right in the skull with a Kinshasa from Shinsuke Nakamura. I was very pleased with this ending, though I kind of was thinking maybe they were going to go with The Miz winning the Intercontinental Championship and tying Chris Jericho for a 9-time reign. This type of situation, I honestly think the Intercontinental title with The Miz should be held off until WrestleMania. I think at WrestleMania, Miz should tie that Intercontinental title record with Chris Jericho. Charlotte Flair, I think she should get that 10th women's title reign at WrestleMania. Not in the main event, but at WrestleMania within the mid part of the card of the show. That I would have no problems with. Her being placed in the main event, oh, God help me. No, I would not like to see that. That would be bullshit. This matchup, though, I'll give it a 3.5 out of 5 stars, as I already just mentioned. Very pleased with the match. Would definitely go back and watch it just for the sake of watching it because it seemed like a pretty entertaining match. Though it made no sense having Miz challenge for the Intercontinental title when he's a Raw guy and Shinsuke Nakamura is a SmackDown guy. But like I said before, we got guys linking up to other guys that are on fucking different brands. Sami Zayn's a Raw guy. SmackDown's Shinsuke Nakamura. I don't understand this fucking logic, but who the fuck cares, really? You know, I mean, come on. Show's a complete mess. From there, we had Becky Lynch defending her championship against Sasha Banks. This was a very entertaining matchup. It left a cliffhanger at the end of this matchup. On top of it, they brawled throughout the entire part of the arena, even backstage by the concession stands. Very fun, entertaining matchup. These women went all over the place. They showed pure and unadulterated hate for one another. It was pure wrestling at its finest. A rivalry that seems like it could build momentum if it's done right, and so far it's being done correctly. I really feel that this was the start of a good rivalry that they could work up to Survivor Series or end it at Hell in a Cell if they really want to. If they can't really think of any other creative ideas to keep this momentum going, I'd just end it at Hell in a Cell and be done with it. Personally, I feel that these two women need to have a Hell in a Cell matchup for the Raw Women's Championship. It is a definite. It's a must-have situation. It definitely needs to happen. These two women have history of all the time that they were together in NXT. Sasha Banks is frustrated in where she's been placed in the WWE, where she has not yet to be able to do anything spectacular with her career. And on top of it, if you want to please Sasha Banks and give her what she's looking for, you got to give her this opportunity. And on top of it, give her the moment that she should have had against Charlotte Flair 3 years ago. 3 years ago, Charlotte Flair and her faced each other for the Raw Women's Championship. She was in her first title defense during that reign that she had. I think it was her second reign. And she did not walk away victorious, and she ended up losing the match altogether. This matchup, she needs to win. She needs to win the match, win the title, and then go on to face Becky Lynch in a third match, which would make sense to have it at Survivor Series. And Survivor Series being the term of the pay-per-view would be a great way of using that slogan for this matchup as well. Can Sasha Banks survive make it a last woman standing match? Do that if you really want to do that. If you want to go to a regular matchup where she needs to survive to retain her title, I think that would be great too. I think probably the last woman standing match would be the better idea to do. Number one, I don't think that they ever had a last woman standing match on the WWE main roster. I know they didn't. Sorry about the sneeze there. I do know that they did that on the NXT roster, but I don't think they ever did it on the main roster yet. So this would be a perfect situation if they decide to do so on the Survivor Series card. But that is a definite thing that needs to happen. We need to see Sasha Banks win the title from Becky Lynch at Hell in a Cell and then retain the title in Survivor Series and walk away with her first ever title defense in the history of her career. So that's just how I feel. This matchup I'll give a 4 out of 5 stars to because it definitely earned that. Next match after that, I believe, was the WWE Championship matchup. Was it? Yeah. It was a WWE Championship match. Randy Orton, Kofi Kingston, they did it right. They should have done it in fucking SummerSlam, but they did it right here. Randy Orton loses to Kofi Kingston in a very close matchup. This match was a 4 out of 5 stars as well. Very close as being the match of the night, but because of the storyline that they have going on with Sasha Banks and Becky Lynch, having a cliffhanger the way they did, I thought that was great. And by the way, I forgot to mention Sasha Banks won by disqualification because Becky Lynch hit the referee by mistake with a chair when she was trying to hit Sasha Banks with it. So that's just to give you the result of that match. This match, Kofi Kingston walks away the winner. At the end, Orton tries to go for the punt kick and that he hasn't used in like God knows how long. And he tried to execute the move, but he misses, and Kofi Kingston has trouble in paradise. Earlier in the match, he hit an RKO on Kofi Kingston, which I thought was the end of the match, but I saw that he was close to the rope, so Kofi Kingston managed to be able to put his foot on the rope and not get counted to 3, so he managed to survive in that match. I really thought Randy Orton was still going to walk away with the victory here, because all he had to do was hit another RKO in the middle of the ring, which he did not. It led to that ending, and Kofi Kingston picks up the victory 1-2-3. Now, this was the right ending that needed to happen between these two guys, but I think that ending should have happened at SummerSlam. It would have made it seem more important. At SummerSlam, people were more interested in it, and I think at this one, it just seemed like people were kind of interested in it, but not so much so that if Kofi Kingston won, people would be flocking with joy or be excited. So it kind of devalued his moment with Randy Orton here. They did right with Randy Orton putting over Kofi Kingston. They need to build more stars. At this point, I think Randy Orton can win the WWE Championship, and it won't take anything away from Kofi Kingston. Because I think Randy Orton needs to get that title reign one more time. He's still great in the ring. He puts over a lot of stars. And I think Randy Orton being the WWE Champion going into WrestleMania against another young star to go up against to win the title from him would be a great idea. So that's how I feel. I think the best opponent for him at WrestleMania with the WWE Championship on his shoulder would be Mustafa Ali. I think Mustafa Ali versus Randy Orton would be an outstanding idea simply because what Randy Orton did to Mustafa Ali earlier this year. This matchup would play out very well. It would get the same kind of reaction that Kofi Kingston got when he beat Daniel Bryan for the WWE Championship. Not to mention, it talks about all the stuff that happened last year to Mustafa Ali, everything that was stripped away from him on account of Randy Orton himself. So, him being champion going into WrestleMania and him facing Mustafa Ali would be a great type of match to put together as a great way of making that on the, in the middle of the card, not anywhere near the main event. Well, maybe like second to last or something like that, I guess you could do. But I honestly don't think that this matchup is something you should pass up. I think Randy Orton should get another rematch for this, win the WWE Championship, and then move on throughout the remaining months, defeating other people, and then facing Mustafa Ali for the WWE Championship at WrestleMania 36. I think Mustafa Ali deserves the opportunity. I think after this pay-per-view, they need to start building Mustafa Ali with some wins, have him face some decent challengers and get in a little bit of a rivalry here and there, maybe a month or two rivalry at some point during the winter and fall, and move him into the Royal Rumble. maybe get him to get close to winning the Royal Rumble, but not really win the Royal Rumble itself, but then go on to the Elimination Chamber to determine a number one contender for the SmackDown WWE Championship belt and have him win that matchup itself. That would be a great way of doing things. I think that would be the best way to put him in the WWE title picture, and that's just how I feel on that. Leave your comments and opinions on that statement that I just made, and my creative ideas of what I think should happen for WrestleMania 36 with the WWE Championship. So, yeah, this matchup was a decent matchup overall, 4 out of 5 stars, but it wasn't at the same level that it could have been at SummerSlam. I think Kofi Kingston winning at SummerSlam would have been a whole lot hell of a more meeting there than it is here. Simply because Clash of Champions is just an average Joe pay-per-view. It's nothing major and it's no big deal. From there, we had Roman Reigns face Erick Rowan one-on-one in a no disqualification match. I think this match more belonged on a SmackDown or Raw episode, probably SmackDown anyway, because of the fact that they're SmackDown guys. So these two guys being on SmackDown would probably have been a better idea, simply because of the name of the pay-per-view is called Clash of Champions, and it's all the titles on the line. There's no title here, so why the fuck is it on the card? Period. Hence, we could have gotten AJ Styles and Cedric Alexander on the fucking main card, take this match, remove it, put it on a SmackDown episode as a main event, and we would have gotten a good rating grabber for the audience to tune in for. We didn't get that. We get it on the fucking pay-per-view. We did get a surprise, though, from Luke Harper, who apparently appeared out of fucking nowhere for Erick Rowan. Now, apparently, Luke Harper is under Erick Rowan's banner instead of the other way around. Erick Rowan has now stepped out of the shadows and became his own self. He's got a good mic skills, I think. He's pretty solid. And he seems like he has a character. He doesn't seem like a blithering idiot. This character he's portraying now seems like he's kind of just like a person who has a identity. Before he didn't have no identity. Nobody cared for Erick Rowan. In this situation with Roman Reigns, he seems to matter. At least to me he does. Because he put Roman Reigns on his ass throughout most of this matchup, number one. Number two, he looked very brutal with Roman Reigns, like as he was with Braun Strowman. Braun Strowman took Roman Reigns to the limit back in 2017. And this was no different. So, straight to the point, this matchup was fun as fuck to watch. 3.5 out of 5 stars, simply because we all know this is not going to lead to anything great. Roman Reigns is going to pick up a victory. We all know what is going to lead with Roman Reigns. Eventually, Roman Reigns is going to become a WWE champion. It may not be at WrestleMania, but it will be at some point. And I don't think he's going to be on SmackDown for much longer, because he ain't going nowhere on SmackDown. I don't feel he's gained any momentum. I don't feel like he's made anything of importance. He's really good at helping others look good recently, but he's not done anything to elevate his career. It seems like he's kind of stuck. He's not doing much of anything, which I don't see there's anything wrong with that. I think he's getting the Undertaker type treatment where he's placed in rivalries here and there, pops up, does his thing. Roman Reigns is not a dead person, but he's being portrayed more as a Undertaker type situation. Having rivalries, but not getting a lot of world championship opportunities. So maybe that's best for Roman Reigns at this point in his career. But I think eventually, by at least next year, he should be able to at least be in a title contention. But right now, he's nowhere near that, which is kind of shocking. But bottom line, this matchup was entertaining as fuck. They really teared each other up. And I have really no complaints on it. And I do like the fact that Roman Reigns lost instead of won after he was getting his ass chewed up and beaten the hell out of throughout most of this match. So for him to lose, it was more realistic than anything else. And then lastly, we had the WWE Universal Championship match, which really, honestly, what the fuck? Braun Strowman looked awesome as hell in this match. He took a beating, kept on ticking, and yet couldn't pick up any offensive, advantage near the end of this match. He couldn't do jack shit, and he kept kicking out of fucking curb stomps. Then eventually we got a pedigree from Seth Rollins, which we have not seen in God knows how long. I'd say since 2017, about 2 years ago. Maybe this is a hint with that move that he's going to evolve back to being a face, a heel. Which would be nice. I think it's about time he becomes a heel, because people really right now do not care for him whatsoever. I sure as hell don't. The people were booing him on top of it from all the kickouts that Braun Strowman was making in the middle of the match. And then it just led to one thing after another. People very dissatisfied. Probably they were getting disgruntled and just wanted to see this match end already, because they knew Braun Strowman was not the guy they were going to go with winning the championship off of Seth Rollins. But eventually it led to a pedigree and then another fourth curb stomp and a 1-2-3 after Braun Strowman tried to deliver a power slam, but his knee gave out from the maneuver he did on the top rope. When he performed that move, for some strange reason, his kneecap must have hit the mat wrong, and they were playing that out as if he really got injured from that. And they played that off as him being unable to hit the power slam maneuver that he normally finishes his opponents off with. That ended up with a pedigree and then the curb stomp, as I already mentioned. So this matchup, I'm giving a 3 out of 5 stars. It did have its moments where people were excited. I was actually having a good time watching it. But honestly, it really didn't do anything as, to helping bring prestige to the Universal Championship and life to that title. It doesn't seem important, and it doesn't seem to really fucking matter. The Kofi Kingston match with Randy Orton seemed more important than this fucking match, to be quite frank with you. And even the Raw Women's Championship match seemed more important than that match, and it had a shitty fucking finish to top it all off. So, I mean, I don't know what the fuck they're going to do here, but they did finish the show off, like I mentioned, with The Fiend / Bray Wyatt hitting a Sister Abigail and doing the Mandible Claw on Seth Rollins to close out the show and making Bray Wyatt look very dominant on Seth Rollins and becoming the new challenger for the Universal Championship. I honestly feel it is time. Bray Wyatt needs to win the Universal Championship. I don't care that he hasn't built up enough wins. He's only been there for a few months as The Fiend. He needs to win this title now. He needs to be a dominant champion on Raw and a fearful one. I honestly feel that is the best course of action they need to go with here and do that at Hell in a Cell. It will bring about a new change in wrestling. It will make it feel more like a Attitude Era type feel to it, only with the PG type era still thrown in the mix. But Bray Wyatt brings a lot of horror type feeling towards his character and everything else. And I honestly think with that type of characteristics, that will bring some more seriousness towards that Universal Championship on top of it. Anyway, guys, it's been a long review. I didn't particularly think I was going to make it to 40 minutes, but leave your comments and opinions down below. Hit the like button if you liked the video, and hit the subscribe button if you're not already subscribed to the channel. And I thank you very much for watching, and have a great night, guys. Bye.